the UFC can say whatever they want as far as, Dana will say, oh, there's no difference between the 25-foot cage and the 30-foot cage.
Bullshit.
Exactly. I think, the fights that you have been seeing, and it proves there's a difference. There's just less space, and there's less ways of creating separation and movement that is hard to follow. The bigger the space, the harder it is to actually chase somebody or section them off, cut them off. So that 25-foot cage does make a difference. I do believe, since this fight with Stipe and DC is supposed to take place in the Apex Center, I believe that is a huge benefit to DC, because DC has said that he's going to wrestle in this third fight with Stipe, which is a smart move by him, and it will give less room for Stipe to switch angles on him, to get him off at times. It will make it a harder fight on Stipe.
I guess there's a couple, but the question was, does he have the right to ask the UFC? Of course he has the right to ask UFC to change it to the bigger cage. Will they do it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They will not.
Absolutely not.
It's not set up. They're not going to tear a cage down and put another cage in there for that round of fights. They just won't do it. Now, if they were going to do it at Fight Island, I don't know if the same cage is the same size. I don't know.
Fight Island's the 30-foot cage.
There you go. So maybe, had he maybe wanted to fight earlier, he would have you know what I mean? But if they're going to have
done it in July.
he could have done it in Dubai. But that wasn't the case. And so the situation didn't present itself. Look, it's going to be a harder fight regardless. I think for both guys. Both guys have figured each other out. You're going to see a lot different fight from both fighters. If he thinks that the body shots are going to work on DC this time, there's going to be less of them available there, because DC is going to make sure he stays in that clinch at any moment. He's not going to stand in that pocket and be allowed to get hit with body shots. I haven't trained with DC. I haven't seen DC in probably a couple months. I'm just simply saying, the adjustment I would imagine is going to be by Javier Mendez, Bob Cook, is you're either all the way in or you're all the way out.
All the way out.
And if you're all the way out, we're using things to utilize, snatching the leg, waiting for him to commit, or we're throwing our punches with the head kick, even though DC is not, he can get the foot up there still, even at 42 years old. It's one of those fights where I feel like anytime you have two guys that have had two good fights, DC doing well in the first fight with a knockout, and then Stipe doing well in the second fight, stuffing takedowns. And I actually completely forgot. Someone had reminded me and said in the comments that, Stipe had taken DC down, I think, in the third round. And it was the third round? Yeah, anyways, Stipe was able to get a takedown in one of the rounds, was able to actually remain the rest of the round on top. And that's something that we've continued to tell DC over all the years, that you need to start working up on getting up from the bottom, no matter what, because there is one day where they're going to catch a kick and they're going to end up on top. They catch you, take you down, you slip and fall. He's been taken down before. He got taken down by John Jones. I will continue to go back to, when you have top caliber athletes like DC is a better athlete, is that he's going to always say that I'm not going to get taken down. Josh Koscheck used to say that all the time. GSP ain't taking me down. He took him down at will. I mean, I'm not saying Stipe is going to do that. I'm saying that once you know that it's a possibility, it changes the way you approach the fight. And it also, there's guys that, like, no one in the world probably thought Stipe would ever try to shoot on him. But then he realized how tired DC was and was like, you know what? If I can get this takedown, I can finish the rest of this round on top. And that worked out for him. And so in that situation, he has definitely made the adjustments from the second fight. Will DC make the adjustments that Stipe made from the first fight, like he did going in the second fight? That's the question. Look, all this other homer shit aside, DC's got his work cut out for him. No matter how I can say all day he's a better athlete. I can say all day he hits harder. I can say all day that he's obviously a better wrestler. I can say all those things. But what it comes down to, though, also, he's 42 years old. Okay. He hasn't fought in it's been over a year now. There's a lot of things that go into play here. The inactivity.
Well, neither guy has fought, so.
Yeah, I understand that. But also DC, I don't know how Stipe was with his weight, but DC put a lot of weight on and is now getting it off. Those are not things that are easy to do to your body. Go all the way up, come all the way down. And the traveling he was doing the fight shows and, all this other stuff. There's a lot of adjustments being made. Also, this fight is not at his camp. This fight is not at AKA because AKA is closed. So what they are doing is he built a gym in his house and he has the coaches going there with a couple of the guys like Deron Wynn, a couple of the guys coming in to wrestle and also to spar with, Kyle Crutchmere and some other guys that were there. So this is not going to, I don't know if we're going to see the best of both guys, but we are going to see we are definitely going to see some changes from the first two fights. This will not be the same similar fight we saw in the second, and definitely will not be the same similar fight we saw in the first. They will make the adjustments. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag out kind of fight, but it's going to be hard for DC to wrestle for 5 rounds. Not because it's just in general, it's hard to wrestle for 5 rounds, period. I don't care if you're 22 or if you're 28 or if you're 42. I don't know the adjustments that DC is going to make outside of wrestling. He's still going to have to stand. If he doesn't stand, it's going to be a lot harder fight for him. He can't wrestle 5 rounds without standing and getting in those exchanges like he did in the first fight as well as in the second. I think he got carried away. I do know after talking with his manager, Bob Cook, after talking with some of the trainers and some of his strength and conditioning coaches, in the second fight, he kind of took a couple things for granted. The training was sure it was hard, but when guys are training and they're just going through the motions and it's not really what they could be putting out. DC admitted to himself, like, yeah, there was times like instead of doing the full pull workout, he was like, yeah, I'm just going to run at home. Okay. And then, the run at home is not the same as the run at the track with everybody else and all the other guys. And with your strength and conditioning coach, those type of things you start to take for granted. Not just as you get older, but I think also after you finished him the first way he did in the first fight. And we talked a little bit about how Max was coming into his fight. And I feel like a little bit of that was with DC. There are times when guys, even at the upper levels, they take things for granted sometimes. And I don't think DC is going to take it for granted this time. I think you're going to get the best DC you can get. I don't know if it's going to be enough to beat Stipe. I think it will be, but it's still going to be a hard fought fight for him.
100% agree. Okay.